Welcome to the Finance Report. I'm Mallory Hoff alongside David Wilkinson and our guests Ralph and Tim Short. Over the next half hour, we'll discuss planning for a successful retirement and why so many people in this country are missing the mark.
So here's what's in store. First, we're going to talk about taxes. They could be the most critical part of your retirement, but get this, they're often overlooked. Then in 15 and 15, we'll discuss income, risk, and growth strategies, and we'll also talk about market volatility and why it's so important to protect your assets at this stage of life. That conversation and so much more ahead.
Joining us now are Ralph and Tim Short. The father-son duo are part of the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, a Richmond area firm that focuses on preparing people for a successful retirement. Tim, Ralph, I've heard you both say so many times, by the time we get to retirement, we shouldn't be worrying. How does having a proper tax plan factor into accomplishing this?
Well, Mallory, that's very important. And a lot of people don't think about these kinds of things, but it's not about the money that you're making. It's about the money that you're keeping.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's very important.
Absolutely.
So if tax planning is so critical, why, from your experience, do you believe so many people are overlooking it when it comes to their retirement planning process?
Because I am so much older than my son over here. He doesn't fully understand all this, but we've been told all our lives, a little fable, I think, because when you get into retirement, you're going to be at the lower end of the tax bracket. But how do you know that? Because right now, maybe you're not going to be, because most people are making as much money in retirement as they are working.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Financially speaking, what at the end of the day is the difference between those who really think about tax planning and those who overlook it?
Well, what I would say to you is think about Uncle Sam being in your pocket.
Okay.
So if you have taxes that's increasing during your retirement, you may have less money to spend on that lifestyle that you wanted all your life and dreamed about all your life.
Absolutely.
So currently in this world, obviously things are shifting, changing, a lot of volatility can take place, but right now, where do you foresee the future of taxes taking retirees?
Well, we don't really know for sure, but we do believe that taxes are going to increase in the near future. Okay, what Washington's doing right now, the way that money is heading, we do believe that taxes are going to increase. So at the end of the day, if you're on a fixed income, let's say $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month, and Uncle Sam has his hand out because the tax rates have now increased from, let's say, a 20% tax bracket now to a 40% tax bracket, that's less money you're going to bring home. So is your plan going to compensate for that? Are you going to be able to be flexible? You still going to be able to live out those golden years the way that you want to? Those bucket list items, those kinds of things.
Because it's all about what you want, not about what Uncle Sam wants or anybody else. It's about you.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this then. How often do you find people walk into your office for a first visit and you realize very quickly they have spent years overlooking their taxes?
Well, we see it a lot. There's the misconception, a lot of people don't even realize they're going to pay taxes in retirement, which to me is ludicrous.
Well, how can that happen?
A lot of people actually believe that. So once we start talking about it, for some reason they think at age 65, hey, I don't have to pay taxes anymore. So once we sit them down and we talk it through and we see the income that they've got, that's when you take a look at their tax bracket right now. But once again, if tax rates increase like we do believe in the future, then what's that going to do for your income plan?
Why do you believe people have this misconception, the misinformation out there that taxes are magically just going to stop? Because sign me up for that plan as well, but how can that type of misinformation be out there for people?
I think a lot of people never thought about it, and they just assume that when you retire, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket, if at all, because you're not going to make as much money. But guess what? It's not about your age, it's about your income. That's what your taxes are going to be like.
All right, when it comes to planning for a successful retirement, what happens if we combine income planning and tax planning?
You have the dreams of your life in retirement, because now you don't have to pay as much in taxes, and you've got an income plan to know where your income's coming from.
You're going to be on a fixed budget more than likely. So you got to make sure that your income planning and your tax planning are going to correlate with each other. That way, if Uncle Sam raises tax rates, then your plan is going to compensate for that. Your flexibility in your plan, you're going to be able to still take your withdrawals out of your account, so on and so forth.
Really important information.
Absolutely, which means the time to act is now. Today, exclusively for our Finance Report viewers, Ralph and Tim have a great offer for you. Right now, for the first 5 callers with a portfolio of $250,000 or greater, they're offering a complimentary, full-blown retirement plan just for you. This will allow Ralph and Tim to sit down with you personally and provide you with a roadmap, analyzing where you are right now and discuss your best steps to really get ready for a successful retirement. It's a game plan to get you where you need to be. The number to call, 804-944-8867. That number, 804-944-8867.
Today we're breaking down the retirement planning process. Ralph and Tim, a lot of your clients do have a significant amount of wealth. Why, for them in particular, is having a retirement plan in place so important?
I would say no matter how much money you've got, a retirement plan is important to you because you have to understand what your budget is, what your expenses are, and how are you going to pay for all that. So you need to have that income stream to pay those bills and do the things that you want to do.
There's a lot of variables that come into play. Taxes are one thing that we always talk about. If tax rates increase, how is that going to affect your income? Also, you got long-term care costs. Look at today's day and age, where we're at with COVID and what have you. All these things are building up to where, in the future, 10 years from now, it could cost you $15,000 a month for a nursing home. If you've got $1 million, it's not going to take long to eat that up. So that's one of the various reasons why having that income plan is so important.
Well, the other thing, too, people need to understand, they complain about long-term care and their expense, like on the insurance policy. Well, it may cost you $500, $600 a month, but it's a far cry less than $5,000 or $6,000 right now in a nursing home.
Okay, so you just mentioned a few things, but big picture, what does a successful retirement plan really include?
It allows you to live out your golden years. I mean, you worked all your life to get to this point. You want to make sure that you retire the way that you want to. I always have this phrase that you don't want to retire from life, you want to retire from your job, from your employer. So you want to make sure you get to do those bucket list items. You can afford the things that you want to do, but we don't retire just to pay for our bills. We want to be able to live out our dreams.
Yeah.
But the other thing, it includes just not your investments. It also includes income plan. It includes long-term care expenses, also looking at tax planning. All those things are important when it comes to the retirement plan itself, not just your investments or how much money you got.
All right, so all of that being said, we've all been around long enough to know that unfortunately the unexpected does happen. How does having a retirement plan in place help you should one of those unexpected expenses come your way?
What I would say at that point in time, you need to have what we call buckets of money for different purposes. So you got some of it over here for emergencies, some of it over here for your investments, and then you have a retirement plan that includes all the things that we've been talking about.
But it's kind of funny, we see a lot of people come into the office and they say, well, I've already got a retirement plan, and they come in and they set it down. And we look at it and guess what? It's just statements on their accounts. That's not a plan. That's just a pot of money that you've saved up. That's a great start, but that's not your plan. You've got to make sure you got to flip that switch from that accumulation phase now that you're in retirement or getting close to retirement to your distribution phase.
Absolutely. So let's talk about risk for a moment. When we're in our 30s, risk obviously is much more tolerable. As we get closer to retirement, obviously we need to be dialed in, but that can be hard for people to transition over to. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Well, what I would say to you, think about it this way. Let's say that your retirement account is now your bank account.
Yeah.
Now you've got $500,000 in your bank, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and swipes half of it away from you. How's it going to make you feel? Is it going to question whether you can retire or do the things that you wanted to do? That's basically what happens when you have too much risk in your portfolio or your investments.
And a lot of people look at risk and just think of market risk. I mean, that's usually the biggest risk, right? Sure. Nobody wants to lose their money. Nobody walks into the door and say, hey, Tim, I want to lose some money. But you got to take a look at the other risks. No matter where you place your money, you're going to have some sort of risk. It's all about you and what risk you're willing to take in order to accomplish your retirement dreams.
Let me ask you both this. We all know people who have spent so many years now trying to accumulate and get to a certain number, and now they're just picking away at that pile of money. What's wrong with that scenario?
You don't know how much you're going to need, because most people have no idea what's going to cost them on a monthly basis and stuff. That's why we go through our process to make them understand what it's going to take to get them to that point, because for you, $1 million may be more than enough because you only have $2,000 a month in expenses and your Social Security is taking care of that. But for somebody who's got $10,000 a month and they only have Social Security, guess what? You're going to have a problem.
And also, too, if you're taking withdrawals from those accounts, back to that whole story of, hey, this is my retirement plan, it's just your statement. If you don't throttle back on your market risk and the market collapses like 2008 during the pandemic, all these things, how's that going to make your retirement dreams last? If you lost 30, 40, 50% in the market and you're tapping into the account, how much longer is it going to take to recoup those losses? Because you're not contributing to your accounts anymore. So it's going to take a lot longer than what you're accustomed to, because while you're at work, you're still contributing to the accounts. So it's going to take a lot. It won't take quite as long to get your accounts back to where they need to be.
But I would think most people will tell us, oh, the market always goes up. I said, well, it probably will, but when? Do you have the time to wait on that? And that's the important piece of the puzzle.
Really valuable insight and guidance as always. Thank you both.
Thank you.
And still to come on the Finance Report, Ralph and Tim will break down market volatility and the importance of protecting your assets. And up next in 15 in 15, David will put Ralph and Tim on the clock.
Is it more important at this stage of life to avoid big losses or focus more on growing our money?
Well, for the most part, it's going to be avoiding those big losses.
But first, exclusively for our Finance Report viewers, Ralph and Tim have a great offer for you. Right now, for the first 5 callers with a portfolio of $250,000 or greater, they're offering a complimentary full-blown retirement plan just for you. This will allow Ralph and Tim to sit down with you personally and provide you with a roadmap analyzing where you are right now and discuss your best steps to really get ready for a successful retirement. The number to call right now, 804-944-8867. Once again, 804-944-8867.
The clock is ticking towards your retirement, so that brings us to 15 in 15, 15 topics in 15 seconds. Gentlemen, you ready to dive in?
Absolutely, let's do it.
We are. Stop the shorts.
You cannot top that enthusiasm. All right, Ralph, you're up first. How much money will you need to retire? According to a survey, more Americans than ever believe the magic number for a successful retirement is $1 million. So, is that the magic number?
How do you know, David, unless you know what your numbers are, what your expenses are going to be? Because guess what? Everybody's a little bit different when their expenses, because you may have only $5,000 income gap, but all of a sudden you got to have money there in order to do that.
So moral of the story, don't chase a magic number.
Correct.
Okay, understood. Tim, your turn. It's understandable to have some concerns, perhaps even some fears when it comes to using your savings in retirement. So what can people do in order to spend with confidence?
Well, one thing you got to do is you got to take a look at your risk factors, right? So you've been working for 20, 30, 40 years in order to accumulate all of this money. Now you got to flip that switch from the accumulation phase to the distribution phase. Well, as you're taking these withdrawals, if the market collapses, what's that going to do to your income? You know, how long is it going to take to recoup that? Those are one of the things that you got to take a look at, right? So you got to make sure that you throttle back on that risk once you hit retirement.
Understood. A lot to take in right there. Ralph, back to you. What if I told you 45% of people who do not have an advisor believe the typical cost is between 5 and 15% of their assets? That's expensive. So what is the typical cost for consumers you work with?
It just depends on an individual and what he's trying to do and what our recommendations are. It could be zero, or it could be maybe 2% or less. It just depends on that individual and what we recommended to him and what they chose.
Okay, so real quick, you said 0 to 2%. The question was 5 to 15. So if you're in that 5 to 15 bracket, head scratcher?
That's right.
And it's all about the value.
Okay, understandable as well. Tim, let's do taxes. A recent survey found that over 30% that every dollar a retiree spends goes to taxes. Are we really looking at potentially close to a third of our money going to Uncle Sam?
Yeah, right now that is true. But what happens in the future? We don't know, but we do believe that tax rates are going to increase. So if it's 30% now, what if it's 40%? What if it's 50%? Have you taken a look at good tax strategies for your investments? You got to make sure that you're able to compensate. Your retirement plan is going to compensate if Uncle Sam has his hand out wanting more piece of your pie.
Because guess what, David? Taxes do not stop in your retirement years. It's based on your income that you have. If you have a lot of income coming in, your tax rate may not be going down. It may be going up.
All right, this is a perfect transition to this next question for you. When it comes to income taxes, is it possible to receive retirement income from our life savings without having to pay those income taxes?
Our whole goal is to pay the least amount of taxes you can. There are certain situations where you may not have to pay any taxes or very little, but you need to have an understanding of it and have somebody, a professional, advise you on how to do that.
Again, I think it's one of the most important things we're going to say in this entire show is taxes do not stop once you get to retirement.
Right.
We cannot hit that nail on the head enough. All right, Tim, obviously as we approach retirement, our thinking, it can change. Is it more important at this stage of life to avoid big losses or focus more on growing our money?
Well, for the most part, it's going to be avoiding those big losses, but it depends on what you've done in the past. You know, if you haven't started saving money until you were 60 years old, maybe it's still time to have your money in the market. But for the most part, most people have saved throughout their working years. Now it's time, let's throttle back on that market risk. right? We need to make sure that we've got that money for the things that we want to do in retirement. We don't want to retire from life. We just want to retire from our employer.
I love the way when you say that. Again, big losses can be devastating at this stage of life. All right, Ralph, who doesn't love guaranteed money? Sign me up for that. Annuities are an investment that can do that for your income, but why do you believe so many people are hesitant to buy one?
Because most people don't understand how they operate. Most people don't understand. They've got basically annuities in their portfolio right now and don't even know it, because that's what Social Security is. That's an annuity issued by the federal government. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, then all of a sudden you've got an annuity coming from your employer. The annuities in the private sector comes from an insurance company. The biggest thing to understand is how they operate. And also, most people talk around the water cooler, say, oh, you don't want to do that. Or they listen to some talking head on TV saying, oh, you don't want to do that. You want to come with me, and this is how we can do things.
Understood. Hey, this is all about, well, go ahead. Why not?
Let me ask you this question,
Okay.
David. If you went out and played the lottery and you won, would you say no to those earnings? That's just an annuity.
It's a great question to ask on that. I like the way you did it. Look, that was a passionate answer, because this is 15 and 15 and you went like 45 seconds on that answer. Absolutely love it. Great news. Pausing the clock right now. Going to let you guys get hydrated. A lot of great information. And because of that, for you at home, Ralph and Tim have a great offer exclusively for our Finance Report viewers. Right now, for the first 5 callers with a portfolio of $250,000 or greater, they're offering a complimentary full-blown retirement plan just for you. This will allow Ralph and Tim to sit down with you personally and provide you with a roadmap, analyzing where you are right now and discuss your best steps to really get ready for a successful retirement, a game plan to get you where you need to be. Call 804-944-8867. That's 804-944-8867. Back on the clock we go. Topic number 8 of 15 and 15. Tim, we've worked decades to get here. We want to travel, see the world, do things with our families. So what do we need to do in order to maximize our lifestyle goals for retirement?
Well, one of the things you need to take a look at, if you're still working, all right, depending on how far away you are from retirement, take a look at the catch-up provisions. You know, are you able to put in more money into your retirement accounts right now towards retirement? Then once you get to retirement, you need to throttle back on your risk tolerance, okay? You need to make sure that money is there for the things that you want to do in your retirement.
Understood. Ralph, fees, I've heard them compared to termites, just eating away at someone's retirement, eating away at someone's portfolio. What can fees really do to one's retirement if you're not dialed in on them?
If you're not dialed in, you pretty much don't understand what's going on within there. All of a sudden, you've got a lot of money coming out of your accounts and you're trying to figure it all out. The best thing for you to do is understand where you are. All those hidden fees are probably something that you don't know about.
Yeah, so make sure you ask the right questions, right? A lot of fine print underneath a lot of those statements. Tim, 401ks, lots of people have them. Lots of people rely on them for income. But how common is it for parts of someone's 401k to be underperforming?
It's quite possible. A lot of people don't take a look at their investments actually inside of the 401k. A lot of people take a look at target dated funds. Is a target dated fund the right thing for you? But a lot of people, when they set it up when they started with that company 20, 30 years ago. So you got to take a look at those things. And that's one of the things we help our clients with.
Understood. Some sound advice. Ralph, once upon a time, pensions were standard. You collected Social Security, and a few mutual funds and bonds carried you to retirement. But how have you seen the rules to retirement change?
You forgot about the gold pen when you retired.
I want that gold pen, absolutely.
Right. But one of the things most people don't understand, if you're lucky enough these days to have a pension, only about 6% of the people retired have a pension. So now that burden's been put on your back to figure out how you're going to have that income coming to you so you can retire.
Absolutely, got to make some adjustments there. Tim, we've discussed that really being ready for retirement is both a financial and a mental question. So how many people really know the answer to that question? Am I really ready to retire?
Most people don't, especially on the emotional side, because most people in the Richmond area have worked for the same company for 20, 30, 40 years, and all of their buddies are at work. If they leave and their buddies are still there, you know, what's that going to do for them? But we sit down, we've got a process that we go through, and we help them, we walk them through all the variables of retirement.
Understood. Very important to revisit this. It was brought up at the top of the show, focusing in on long-term care. What can people do to prepare for that without having to buy some huge insurance policy?
Really have a plan, because most of the people have a insurance plan. They don't fully understand what it's going to take to pay for that long-term care. So would you rather spend $300 or $400 a month or $5,000 or $6,000 or more in nursing home?
No, it's startling, the statistics. Look, taxes could be your largest expense. Long-term care could be even larger for some people. So you do want to have a plan for that. Question number 14 right now for you, Tim. There are always going to be strategies that people can use to plan for retirement. Lots of advisors, they believe in lots of different things, but we're going old school right now. Do you think buy and hold is still a valuable strategy for people?
Well, it depends on what age you are, right? How close are you to retirement? Buying and holding, if you need that money and you're going to buy and hold when you're 65, but you need that and it takes a hit, I don't know if buy and hold strategy is the right thing for you. When you're 20 years old, it's probably a right move. You got to take a look at it. It's going to be based off every individual. That's why we sit down with the process that we've got to see what fits for you.
And now the final question for 15 and 15. Ralph, this one has gained a lot of steam in recent months. Cryptocurrency. What is your advice for retirees that want to buy it?
What is it, David? Does anybody really know? Unless you're absolutely into it. But let me ask you this question. If you were about to retire and you want to put all your portfolio into crypto, would you be willing to risk $60,000 going back down to $30,000, back up to $45,000, and rely on that income that you so desperately need?
That does not work with my palate. No, sir, I would not. Ralph, Tim, excellent work. You're off the clock. You get some time to rest.
All right, thank
Great
you.
information. And for you at home, if you're looking to make sure you can get to and through retirement, Ralph and Tim have a great offer exclusively for our Finance Report viewers. Right now, for the first 5 callers with a portfolio of $250,000 or greater, they're offering a complimentary, full-blown retirement plan just for you. This will allow Ralph and Tim to sit down with you personally and provide you with a roadmap, analyzing where you are right now and discuss your best steps to really get ready for a successful retirement. The number to call, 804-944-8867. That's 804-944-8867.
We're going to go back in time to 2008 for a moment from a market volatility standpoint. Ralph, Tim, you've both been doing this for a long time now. We don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what's going to happen next, but we certainly can learn from the past. Take me back in time for a moment.
What I would say, why stop at 2008? Let's take
Sure.
a look all the way back to 1987 when Black Monday hit, and all of a sudden you have a 50% drop in a couple of days. Yes, it goes up and it goes down, but where you are in your retirement stage depends on what you need to do. Just for an example, I had an individual that came in to see me in April of '87. He decided at age 82 that he wanted to take $300,000 and put it into one of the more aggressive situations. I said, that is not what you need to do. So he went with the other person that was recommending. Guess what? His $300,000 within 3 months was at 145. So guess what he did? He sold out. He lost all that money for his retirement.
Right. So let's go back to a more recent stage,
That's
right? So we've got 2007. All right. This is where we're at with the S&P 500. If you're in there and you're looking at retiring, 2008, we lost 38.5% roughly. Okay. If you retire in 2008 down here, are you going to retire the way that you want to? More than likely not. You do not want to retire solely to sit on your sofa and watch TV. You've got retirement dreams that you've worked so hard to get to that point. Okay. So now, if you take a look here, from 2007 to 2013, the S&P 500 value is about the same. So a lot of people don't really encompass how the cycle actually works. In that 5-year period, the S&P 500 is about the same. So if you're not working, you're not making contributions to the account, from 2008 to 2013, it takes a long time to recoup.
You guys meet with a lot of people. Let me ask you this. Have we learned from some of these past experiences or no?
No, most people will listen to talking heads on TV or somebody around the water cooler, and I hear this a lot. Well, it always goes up. I said, well, yes, it does, but when it goes up, do you have the time to wait until you start needing that money? Because you need to understand, when you start using that money and as it goes down, it's a double whammy on you and your retirement.
Absolutely. So we know that our portfolio should match our age and stage. Realistically, though, how challenging can it be to convince someone it's time to stop taking on so much risk?
Oh, it's very challenging. Everybody remembers 2008. Sure. Anybody that comes into the office and we start talking about the market, oh, I remember 2008. Well, let's go back here to 2000. You know, those 3 years, there's issues there. So this right here is what kills everyone. They take a look at, since COVID, where we have rebounded from. So they look at that in their portfolio and see 40, 50, even 60% return, and they're like, hey, I'm going to be okay. I'm just going to ride out this wave. There's so many variables. If you're not making contributions, if you're taking distributions, there's so many things that are going to come into play. Why not throttle back on that and make sure you've got that guaranteed income coming to you?
All right, so speaking of which, what does that look like? Because I have heard you both say time and time again, look, this is a roller coaster ride you don't necessarily have to be on. But what would your portfolio look like if you weren't so invested in the stock market?
It would be more or less something that you can depend on.
Yeah.
It also depends on really what you're trying to accomplish. If you don't need any of that money to live off of, and you just wanted to let it ride, I've got 85 years old that just wants everything in there because he wants to pass it on to his kids because he doesn't need it. So he wants it to be as big as he can. That's fine, but for somebody that needs that for income at age 65, then it may not be the same scenario for you.
Another reason it's so important to have that custom tailor-made retirement plan.
Absolutely.
Thank you both so much. Speaking of which, this is why exclusively for our Finance Report viewers, Ralph and Tim have a great offer for you. Right now, for the first 5 callers with a portfolio of $250,000 or greater, they're offering a complimentary full-blown retirement plan just for you. This will allow Ralph and Tim to sit down with you personally and provide you with a roadmap analyzing where you are right now and discuss your best steps to really get ready for a successful retirement. The number to call, 804-944-8867, 804-944-8867.
Before we go today, let's recap.
Yeah, when it comes to planning for a successful retirement, tax planning is critical.
That is correct, unless you want to pay Uncle Sam more than you really need to.
Don't do that. Tim, we also talked about income planning. Why should that be the foundation for a successful retirement?
Well, because income is everything. If you don't have the income, are you going to be able to do the things that you want to do in retirement? You got to make sure that your income plan is going to be flexible for all the curveballs life's going to throw at you.
When it comes to risk and protection, what's our most important takeaway?
I would say you need to take a look at where your risk is, and as you get closer to retirement, throttle it back.
Absolutely.
What can this do for our lifestyle?
Create the lifestyle that you want. Nobody wants to retire from life. They want to retire from their job.
Absolutely.
And that being said, you have something very special for our viewers watching at home.
That's right. For the first 5 callers that have saved $250,000 or more for retirement, I'd like to extend an invitation to give us a call, and we will personally help them put together their very own retirement plan. And Mallory, David, we will do this on a complimentary basis.
And that really is an opportunity that should not be missed, exclusively for our Finance Report viewers. Once again, right now, for the first 5 callers with $250,000 or more saved for retirement, Ralph and Tim are offering a complimentary full-blown retirement plan just for you.
This will allow them to sit down with you personally and provide you with a roadmap, analyzing where you are right now and discuss your best steps to really get ready for a successful retirement. It's a game plan to get you where you need to be. The number to call right now, 804-944-8867. Again, that number, 804-944-8867. For all of us at the Finance Report, thank you for watching.
And we'll see you back here next time.